Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup, end of year awards. So, yesterday we did Team of the Year, and there was some controversial decisions in there were some interesting decisions, but we saw that San Francisco Shurk and Vancouver Titans clearly kind of swept the board with a lot of it. But that was just Team of the Year. I want to give out some specific awards for just general different things throughout the season. And some of these awards will be for good things, some of these will be for bad things. So, without further ado, shall we get into it? The first award goes to the team with the best teamwork, or the best synergy. I talk about synergy a lot when talking about teams in the Overwatch League and contenders, because very often that can make all the difference. And the team with the best synergy and the best teamwork that I have gone for 2019 is the Vancouver Titans. So, you may be thinking, well, why? Why not the San Francisco Shock? And the reason is because I think San Francisco Shock have some really, really great players, and generally the teamwork is very good for the San Francisco Shock. But the Vancouver Titans, especially when playing with Bumper, and we saw the Vancouver Titans come up short in the playoffs when they weren't playing Bumper, but when they were playing Bumper in the regular season, the team revolved around him, and the team was very good at recognizing what Bumper was going to do, and then working around it and enabling Bumper. So I think that the teamwork for the Vancouver Titans was fantastic, because otherwise you'd be looking at Bumper and saying, well, he's this crazy main tank going off doing crazy stuff, and he's costing his team games. But he wasn't. He was actually being enabled by the entire Vancouver Titans roster, the support line and the DPS, and obviously Janu in the off-tank position, generally most of the time, or so Sue when he was playing Zarya. And it all just culminated in a fantastic team. Now, obviously, we knew the Vancouver Titans were going to be fairly good with their synergy when they were coming into the league, because we knew they were runaway. So, best teamwork goes to Vancouver Titans. The best turnaround during the season, though, goes to the Washington Justice. Because, yes, they were very, very, very late in turning up, but in Stage 4, the Washington Justice were actually very, very good. In Stage 4, they staged a massive turnaround in their fortunes. Again, it was too late at the end of the season, but the Washington Justice actually finished with a 6-1 record in Stage 4 and finished 4th. That's crazy compared to the rest of their season where they were bottom of the league and barely winning a game. So, the best turnaround definitely goes to the Washington Justice, and it's kind of off the back of Corey and Stratus looking so good. And it looks really promising for the Washington Justice going into next season. Now we look at the biggest underperformers, and this was a tough one for me between two teams, either the Los Angeles Valiant or the London Spitfire. Now, London Spitfire were last year's winners, and they finished 7th this year. But remember that London Spitfire didn't finish that high up in the actual seedings in the inaugural season, but still won the league. Valiant, however, are a different story. Valiant finished 2nd in the standings in the inaugural season, but this season, they came up much, much, much worse, finishing 13th and not even reaching the playoffs. So the Valiant have had an enormous drop-off in the 2019 season, and looking at the changes they've made so far, it doesn't look like anything's going to change all that much. So the Los Angeles Valiant are definitely the biggest underperformers of 2019 in the Overwatch League, and I don't think many people can perhaps argue with that. You could argue for the Boston Uprising, but the Boston Uprising arguably overperformed in 2018, so can you say that they're underperformers now? I don't know. Boston Uprising was kind of expected to struggle this season, and they did, so that's kind of where we are with that. The most surprising new team, though, and this has got an honourable mention with it. I've gone for the Chengdu Hunters, and the reason I've gone for the Chengdu Hunters, at the start of the season, the Chengdu Hunters were at the bottom of most people's power rankings, and I will admit myself, I had them at the bottom of my power rankings, or near the bottom anyway. No one expected this all-Chinese roster to do very well, especially off the back of Shanghai Dragons' inaugural season. So, for Chengdu to finish 12th, get into the play-ins, is a fantastic result for Chengdu this year, and most of their roster makes up the Chinese Overwatch World Cup squad, which has also done very well. So, expect Chengdu to do very well going into next season, but I think they're the most surprising new team out of this season. An honourable mention, though, is our 9th place team this season, and that is the Guangzhou Charge. Guangzhou Charge were also not expected to do very well with their mixed roster. But again, much like the Philadelphia Fusion did last year, they made it work. Guangzhou Charge did pull off some really interesting results. They didn't make it past the play-ins though, but they were still a really, really good roster and much better than we expected them to be. So they're an honourable mention for the surprising new team category, but it will go to the Chengdu Hunters. Most improved on the inaugural season though, it has to go to the Shanghai Dragons. An argument can be made for the San Francisco Shock, but we saw a lot of improvement from the San Francisco Shock towards the end of the inaugural season. Shanghai, they did not win a game. And here we are saying Shanghai were 11th. They won Stage 3 of this season, and they've been able to beat the best in the league. And Shanghai Dragons had no hope of doing that last season. They are obviously our most improved team for 2019. Worst team this season. This may seem like a really weird award, because obviously you would think the worst team this season would be the team that finished 20th, right? I don't think the team that finished 20th, which would be the Florida Mayhem, are the worst team this season. The worst team this season, in my opinion, are the Boston Uprising. They finished 19th in the end. Now, the reason I say this is because Florida Mayhem did have kind of a rejuvenation at the end of the season, not to the extent that the Washington Justice had, because the Washington Justice actually managed to lift themselves off the bottom of the league, but Florida Mayhem did show improvement. Boston Uprising, however, they were okay at the start of the season, but it just went downhill to the point when they were, I don't want to say a joke at the end of the season, but they were bad. They were bad come the end of the season, Boston Uprising. And it seems like the story might continue into next season, because Boston look still very, very poor. Very poor. And yeah, it's worrying times to be an Uprising fan, isn't it? But I will go for them as my worst team this season. That category may not come back next year, because really you would expect the team to be bottom of the league, to be the worst team in this season. But I think Boston Uprising edge it for me ever so slightly. And then, to round off the teams getting awards, we're going to get the team with the most memes. The team with the most memes goes to the Atlanta Reign. I don't think anyone else could have got this award. They started off the season with Defran, and having players like Baby Bay and Dogman on your team is going to get you into the teams with the most memes category, that's without a doubt. And it's nice to see a bit of spice. It's nice to see a bit of spice for these teams. You know, Dogman's, I think he's had spats with Jane and people like that, so it's really, really cool to see some of these people popping off. And teams with the most meme last year probably would have been Dallas, maybe. Just because the memes were good from Dallas, but the play wasn't last year. But Atlanta Reign have got the play to back it up as well. So they will be my team with the most memes. But then we get on to individual player awards. So there's going to be 6 of these. An award for the best player in each role, award for best flex player, the most embarrassing moment, and the worst signing of the season. We're going to start off with the worst signing of the season, and I'm going to name my worst signing of the season as Kuki. Now, Kuki was a main tank for Seoul Dynasty last year. He then, in the off-season, moved to the Los Angeles Valiant. And then, really, nothing really happened, did it? I mean, I think he was in the main tank role, then he was all of a sudden used in the support role on Lucio at times and stuff like that. Los Angeles Valiant were all over the place, and we didn't really know what was going on. And Kuki really didn't have the impact that anyone kind of expected. He didn't turn the team around. It's nothing against Kuki as a player. He was a good player, and then once he left the Valiant in June or July, sorry, he then went on to coach Runaway, and Runaway did very well in the second season of Contender's career, and now he's back as a coach for the Florida Mayhem. So, it's not a bad guy. He's not bad at Overwatch, don't get me wrong, but his transfer didn't have the impact that the Los Angeles Valiant wanted. So, that makes him my worst signing of the season. There's a lot of people that could have fitted into this. So, if you've got another option for that category, do leave it in the comments below. Best tank? Okay, I'm not going to lie. Best of each role is swept by the San Francisco Shock. Because individually, they've got some really phenomenal players. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, best tank goes to Choi Hoban. I don't think anyone really gonna argue with that. The main tanks, there isn't a really standout main tank to me. There's really stable main tanks, but the diversity that Choi Hyobin has provided all season for the San Francisco Shock, playing the D.Va, playing the Roadhog, playing the Sigma, playing the Zarya at times as well, he's just so good. So good. So my best tank goes to Choi Hyobin. The best DPS goes to Sinatra. I don't think there's going to be much surprise there, simply because Sinatra has a varied hero pool. We've seen him on the Widowmaker, we've seen him on the Doomfist, we've seen him on a variety of not only hit scan but also projectile based heroes, which I think makes him a really good pick for best DPS. You can put some other people in there, but they are very specialized in their roles. They're very specialized at the, say, Genji or Mei or Reaper or any of the hit scans, any of the heroes. They can be specialized on those heroes, but also be decent at other heroes. Sinatra seems to be good at whatever you put him on, including things like the Zarya when we were in GOATS as well. So he goes into my best DPS. Again, we haven't seen DPS all year, so it's a bit of a loose category. Best support goes to Moth. I said this in Team of the Year. Moth is so good. So good. I think he's the best support in the league, and therefore I cannot not have him as my best support. And then the best flex player, again, it's a San Francisco Shock. It goes to Rascal, because what I mean by best flex player is player that can not just play a lot of different heroes in his specific role, but he can also play different roles. And Rascal, you remember, was at one point playing support for the San Francisco Shock. When we were in 3-3 GOATS, he was playing Son Batiste, and at times some other heroes like the Brigitte as well. So Rascal was very good in that role. Very good, and was a standout player during that time. So that's why I've gone for Rascal as the best flex player. And that leads us on to our last award. It's going to be the most embarrassing moment for a player in the Overwatch League this year. There are some interesting ones. If you go back to part 1 of the Overwatch Esports Rewind for 2019 that I put out, there's the Fisher moment where he charges the bomb out in front of the whole of the Seoul Dynasty squad, and Meko ends up getting a 4K. That's embarrassing. Obviously, there's the infamous Nene Grav in that very same match, which was, I think, the quarter-final of Stage 1 playoffs, where his Grav just goes to the left-hand side of the last point on Rialto, and no one knew what he was doing. I mean, the general opinion was that he was trying to get the Sombra from the Seoul Dynasty, but it clearly didn't work, and it pretty much lost him that last fight and lost him a chance at the semi-final in those stage playoffs. So that's a pretty embarrassing moment, but you can excuse him for saying that he perhaps was looking at a Sombra. You cannot excuse Youngjin's C9 on Dorado against Dallas Fuel for the Shanghai Dragons. That is the worst C9 since C9, the term, was coined by Cloud9. That was bad. It was literally a walk off the payload, and you cannot get much more embarrassing than that. You know you've done it, and you know that no one is ever going to forget it. No one's ever going to forget it. And for a long time, C9 was renamed Shang9 because of that moment. It's a terrible moment. Youngjin will never forget it. I'm sure he'll go to his grave with that in his mind. But that is my most embarrassing moment, and that ends the awards for this year. So, this means that we are rounding out the year pretty much now. Tomorrow there will be some interesting stuff coming up. Please do join me for the premiere of the Overwatch Esports Rewind 2019 Part 2, which should be coming out New Year's Eve. And boy oh boy, it should be interesting. Watch out for that, because it will be coming up as a premiere on the channel very soon before it goes live. And I will be in the chat watching it with you guys as it goes live, which I think is really awesome. You can ask me questions about it. You can tell me where I've gone wrong if you want to. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching today. If you liked it, give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.